All right, we have arrived at one of my favorite parks, and as you can see, it is raining, gloomy weather. So let's begin. As you can see, it's another gorgeous day. Today we're talking about El Salvador. $60 million has been spent thus far. Look at that. Look at that. I love her. I love her. She's a little too small, but I love the leather inside. It feels great. I have a new appreciation after sitting in some of the cars we have that are much larger vehicles, and they're so uncomfortable, and much larger price tags too. Viola, that's what I call her. Well, that's what I also called my last Volvo, which means violet, but it sounds better in Polish because Viola, Volvo, whatever. Anyways, so, and someone set off a car alarm back there. $60 million spent by Bukalele. Why are they setting off the alarm? I don't get it, or honking or whatever. $60 million. This is when I drive my car. $60 million spent. There we go. We did it. At 370, no, oh my God, it's the other way around. $60 million lost, $375 million spent, and little to show for it so far. El Salvador has a little bit of a problem. And people who are going long, it's not going to matter. Except it does matter because what happens is the people grow wary and decide to vote Bukalele out. Then what happens? They might vote someone in who will revert his policies. And at that point, all you need to do is have voters who want to have someone inside the government who promises them 1, 2, 3-year returns, and boom, they're out. See ya. They're selling at a loss. The average amount that was spent per Bitcoin acquired was 43,500. That's quite a bit, especially since you would need 2.5 times to get back up there. And a lot of people are naysayers. However, I think they invested a little too hard for what small country they were. Of course, the ATM growth has stopped, and they're kind of at a standstill right now. They don't have enough money to keep going. What they have already invested, they have to hold on to it, and it's going to be a long-term thing. We're talking not 6 months from now, maybe at a minimum 1 to 2 to 3 years, and the potential for it to be 5 to 10 years where they're really going to start to see profits. And nothing is guaranteed in crypto. This is a massive experiment. Other countries are also looking at this because if El Salvador fails, other countries won't be inspired to follow suit. I don't know if you could hear because there's massive wind. But if they succeed, and the faster they succeed, then other countries will want to follow suit. And pretty soon, we're going to have the large countries, hopefully, reducing regulation, allowing crypto business to grow, and investing potentially, the government investing, so that hopefully the people are able to make a nice profit out of it. Similar to how Norway is investing their oil money into other projects that the people will be able to be very wealthy for the next 50, 100 years. This is a long-term thing. This is generational wealth that they're creating. So El Salvador, very, very poor nation. They're trying something bold. The only problem is, can Bukalele hold tight? Can the people believe in it long enough for them to see some actual growth, for them to regain hope? Because if they sell now, that's it. All hope is lost. See ya. They're not doing this again. I can promise you that. Hundreds of millions of dollars lost. Any country sees that, they're going to be afraid. America sees that, they're going to be afraid. Germany, UK, China, Russia. But we're talking about a country that is a tiny fraction of the GDP that America is. There are completely different results at that point. Anyways, what do you think El Salvador should do? We are mainly bullish here on crypto. Some of us might be a little bit bearish now due to markets. Do you think El Salvador did the right decision? I think what they did was very exciting. However, I think they went a little too hard into it. Bukalele got a little too hyped up. But I don't think they should regret their decision. I think they should maybe not double down, but stick with what they have right now. Look at how dark it just got. Oh, man. That's within like 10 minutes of filming, or 15 minutes or whatever. That's crazy. Perfect jazz weather. It's still raining a little bit. It's not like crazy, but man, I love autumn. So what happens if there's problems? Not only if Bukulele gets kicked out, but even if he remains, what happens if there's financial problems that deepen for the country? What then? Will they have to sell? This is a very complex issue. A big problem right now is wind. So we'll try this, but hopefully it's not too windy. Remittance. Shiva Wallet. Shiva Wallet was the main application that all El Salvadorians were using to get Bitcoin from the government. And they got $30 as a promotion, and you have to download the app. But of that, okay, it's way too windy. Of that, let's get back inside. Only a small percentage, 20%, 1/5 of the people who downloaded it initially for that $30 later continue to use it. And a huge concern was remittance. So if someone's abroad and sending money back, how many people, how to capture this money, millions of dollars? Well, they had lofty goals, maybe 50%, maybe 20%, and yet only 1.6% of the remittance money that's coming back is going through the app for Bitcoin usage. So why is this a huge concern? Why is El Salvador doing well on some fronts? Yes, they purchased a Bitcoin, but what do they do afterwards? Why have the ATMs stopped growing? Why is use not great? Why are people not using Bitcoin to shop and buy it and trade it and do anything with it? Well, part of it is for remittance to people abroad. There's discrepancy issues in terms of pricing. So if you're trying to buy Bitcoin for dollars and then send it back, there might be arbitrage issues, but also pricing. And if you're the average person, there's fees, and it might just not make sense. It's a little complicated at times. Again, some of these people might be the elderly. Today I had a elderly couple drive a brand new Infinity, and some of these things are so natural to the young test drivers, right? But to the elderly, you have to explain it 5 times over, and you have to be very slow and go in detail exactly, and you have to show them actually, because explaining sometimes doesn't do the trick. So try explaining, which some of these things are pretty simple compared to sending crypto, which again, to us it's simple, but try explaining it to your grandpa. It might be difficult sometimes. So adoption is low because people may not fully understand it. Sometimes it may be difficult. Sometimes there might be pricing issues, or fees are too high, or the website that they're trying to buy isn't working, or the fact that they have to go through this Chivo wallet, which might not be the best, and the fact that that's primarily what the government is promoting for usage of Bitcoin is not the best, because it's kind of like a monopoly at that point. They should have better options. They stopped investing in the infrastructure for Bitcoin. It's kind of as if you build highways, but then you kind of forget about them and just, we'll see how it goes, and you get a pothole here and there, and then it starts getting worse and worse and worse, and eventually you close down the highway. Well, we don't want that to happen. So there's a lot that can go wrong. And part of that is they invested a lot for a very poor country that, a fair percentage of the population is uneducated, or they just don't have enough money for these fees, which the fees may not be enough. And we're talking about a country where the average person, you're talking about $10 or $100. You spend $6 at Starbucks. That's a lot of money over there. That $30, that was huge money over there. In El Salvador, only 82% of children attending school make it to the 9th grade. 9th grade, high school. Not even, 11th, 12th grade going on to college. 9th grade. 6% of what could be students, the children in El Salvador never attend school. Only 89% literacy rates, which is pretty good when you think, hey, it's pretty close to 100%, but compared to other countries. So with the GDP per capita, of course, it's woohoo! The GDP over $24 billion, approaching 25. GDP per capita, it's better than Honduras or some other nations where the crime rates are pretty bad, but it's around $3,500 to $3,700 per person. So now when you put things into perspective and you take a look at other countries where the GDP per capita is over $50,000, over $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, that's quite a lot. That's quite a difference, especially when you're talking about $30 in Bitcoin here and there. Now, of course, there's much worse countries out there with 22% literacy rates in Chad, or, growing up to 40, 50% in some of the other African countries. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have countries with 99.99% literacy rates. You have countries that have a much lower GDP per capita, and there's countries that you can find millionaires almost on every corner in certain neighborhoods. And with El Salvador, there's this other big aspect. Forget the population. Now think about the government. Debt, bonds, and relationships with, outside global factors, other countries, trade, import, export, all of this. Well, Eurobonds is an interesting concept with El Salvador because they're approaching a period where they're going to go into massive debt and things are not looking too hot. And if they fail to pay the interest for some of the bonds and some of the debt that they took out, they might default. And defaulting is not good because then your credit rating sinks and that causes huge problems for your country. So there's so many factors as to why El Salvador could be on the rocks right now. Ultimately, to end this video, I could be ranting about so many factors and whatever. Who cares? Who's going to listen to me? Ultimately, to end this video, El Salvador did a good decision. They went a little too hard for the size of their country, and they should have invested a little bit more into the infrastructure. But forget about all that. It's what they do now with it. They have to educate their populace more. They have to give more opportunities for crypto within businesses and the average person. And they have to make sure they maintain the Bitcoin they have right now, not selling it, not losing it, whatever happening, whether Bukele stays in power or not, they have to hold it to make money. That is pretty much that. It is an extremely interesting experiment, but how this ends up going will impact whether other countries will want to repeat the same experiment or not. Except those other countries might be a lot wealthier with a lot more population that will be able to afford to purchase Bitcoin. And that's huge for mass adoption. But anyways, with that, that's it. Oh man, look at that. That's so awesome. I love sunsets. Anyways, thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day and take care, my friends. Bye.